Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Pierre. That is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Yes, and this is going to be a science fiction movie podcast, which we do on a weekly basis. We talk about science fiction movies, movie films, pictures. They used to say in the olden days. In fact, at
The pictures.
the time this movie came out, they were probably calling it a picture. That's something my mother used to always say when I was little. Like all the adults used to call it going to the pictures. They never said cinema or movies or whatever. They said pictures. Wait, the pictures.
I don't think any of the adults in Canada called it pictures.
What did they call it?
Going to the movies.
Big shiny slideshow. Is that what they called it? I don't know.
Yes.
So
that place you go to and the room it takes you to a different place in the world. It's magic.
yeah, that old story about the train comes at screen. And everyone freaks out. That was in Canada. It was Canadians that were all freaking out at the train.
That was France, and we make fun of it for them still. So
hey, French Canadians a thing. I wasn't a million miles off.
it's true.
Wasn't a million. I mean, a few thousand miles off technically, but but not a million miles off. So, Science Fiction Movie Podcast. Every week we get together to talk about a sci-fi movie. This week's episode is the original War of the Worlds from 1953, and this was a Patreon vote winner. Every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, our patrons will vote between 4 films. And was this 4 50s movies? I think it was. This was the 50s vote. Yeah. So War of the Worlds beat out Forbidden Planet and a couple others. And here we are.
Them, Forbidden
yes.
Planet, and I can't remember the other one.
It might have been It Came from Outer Space, but if it wasn't that, it was something like that.
Maybe.
Because 50s had a lot to pick from, so it wasn't obvious what the 4 were going to be. We skipped the 40s, because we had a 30s vote. We tried to do a 40s vote, and then when we researched it, found that there was almost no sci-fi movies worth watching from the 40s. It's kind of a sci-fi-less decade. I mean, even the 30s doesn't have that much, but the 30s did at least have 4. The 50s and a lot...
Godzilla? Was that 40s?
No, Godzilla's 50s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The 50s is really kind of the start of a lot of sci-fi. Obviously, like, yes, Metropolis was the 20s. There's a couple of big examples in the 30s. The 40s didn't have much. The 50s onwards is kind of when sci-fi really came into a consistent existence.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And we're here
There's
to talk
a lot of, atomic age allegory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this movie's no exception. I think all the movies that we had up for vote were very much like fear of atomic weapons.
Oh, sure. I mean, hell, there's a reason why our sci-fi podcast is called the Atomic Cinema Experiment, because the golden era of sci-fi, if you will, is all atomic based. So, yeah. So I don't think I'd seen this before. I've seen the Spielberg one a couple times, but I don't think I'd seen this one before.
I had not seen it.
Yeah, so first time watch for both of us then. And in the past when we've watched a classic like this for the first time, it has worked out for the most part. I mean, Day the Earth Caught Fire, I think we both walked out of feeling really good. It was a very good movie.
I think we rated that one pretty high.
Yeah. So I was hoping this would live up to that and be another classic that I feel like, we've discovered. We've used the show as a good reason to discover another classic and see how it is. Obviously, this one's more famous than Day the Earth Caught Fire. This is a big title. In fact, my main exposure to this movie actually comes from one of my favorite movies growing up, Explorers, which is a Joe Dante movie starring a young Ethan Hawke. Where they build a spaceship and go to space. But the reason why it exposed me to War of the Worlds is because the main character, who Ethan Hawke plays, at the start of the movie falls asleep watching this. So the noise of the aliens blasting things, I actually have in my mind from childhood, but it's because it's in that movie.
I do as well, but only because the same sound effects are used in Star Trek.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it's the photon torpedoes, the pew pew sound, or I can't recreate it, but when you hear it.
They're much slower in Star Trek.
The phasers are also the same ones that are used on like the heat ray.
Okay. I didn't even notice, to be honest. But I mean, to be fair, the photon torpedoes aren't as quick as this. Like, they're much like this. The sound might be the same, but they're just one at a time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying it makes sense that I didn't notice them in Star Trek. Like, I didn't notice that they were the same sound.
Okay.
I'm trying to make myself feel better. Just go with it. Okay. Let's go with it. So we'll start spoiler free, of course. We'll give you a warning before we get to spoilers, and we'll go from there. So plot's pretty simple. Some weird hot meteorites land on Earth, and eventually these saucer like things with one sort of tentacle eye above it come out and start decimating the planet, and a scientist by the name of Dr. Forrester, his love interest, and some army generals have to try and figure out how to fight back and defeat the menace that is the Martians. In fact, the first thing I want to talk about is at the start of this movie, outside of there's like a montage of like World War 1 and 2 footage of which I think is supposed to have the effect of, hey, look at all this old black and white footage, now we're in color because it's 1953.
This is a very technicolor movie, yeah.
Because it's 1953, and it obviously colours. This is not the first time. Wizard of Oz was the 30s, so I mean, colour had started to integrate into cinema for a while, right? But black and white was still really common by the 50s, and I feel like they were going, "Hey, look at all this black and white stuff. Now it's new because we're in colour, like that." But after that, there's like a voice, a narrator talking about like Martians, like their planet's kind of screwed, and how the temperature's too low, and we even see like cities on Mars, right, when they show it, and they start saying, oh, so they considered all these other planets in the solar system, and it goes to a shot of like Jupiter and those like mountains and shit, and I'm like, this feels a little scientifically non-sincere. As far as I'm aware, we don't even know what the surface of Jupiter looks like because the gas is so thick.
I'm pretty sure it's just gas, like all the way down.
Yeah, but I actually, this bothered me so much, I googled Jupiter surface to see if like there was any like concrete, not literally concrete, but concrete information. And the answer I got first of all in Google was, we don't really know for sure if there's a solid mass at the center, but if there is one, the temperature's so high that it's nothing like the solid mass that we have on Earth. But
isn't Jupiter like a failed sun or a failed star?
Oh, I don't know. You know better than I do, but
I think so. I mean, unless that's something I heard and mixed it up with real science.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me that like even the gas giants at their very center have a little bit of mass underneath all the gas. Obviously, you would never walk around on it because the heat and the pressure of everything is just, you know, gargantuan. But it makes sense that there's something in the middle. But
yeah, I mean, this is definitely just, I don't know, their best guess.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is pre the moon landing.
It did make me think, like, wow, most of the stuff we know about the solar system probably we only know because in the last like 50 years.
Yeah. That's fair, because it also cuts to Mercury. Says, oh, well, they couldn't go to Mercury because there's no air, and I'm like, as opposed to Jupiter and like Saturn, and
why would the advanced race of aliens consider any place but Earth?
Like, I don't know, it was such a weird line to me, because I'm like, as opposed to all these other planets you've mentioned, you're saying they all have air that's breathable?
It's a bit of a weird start, but I like the campiness of it. And
sure.
I like all the visuals. Like, they do look cool.
They look cool.
There's some really cool paintings.
What's funny though is that the thing they show for Jupiter is actually what I think Venus is supposed to look like, give or take.
And I was thinking it looked a lot like the moon Io of Jupiter, which is its closest moon, because it's right on that point of, there's like a line of demarcation where if a moon crosses, it will crack under pressure and turn into a ring. And the first moon of Jupiter, or the first large moon, Io, is like right at that point. So it's constantly like stretching and and expanding, but not breaking because it's not at that point. So that's why it's so volcanic. I was thinking maybe I misheard it and they were talking about Io. But
I just always
it's definitely talking about Jupiter.
Yeah, it's definitely about Jupiter. I always remember Venus being the volcanic, because one of the weird bits of trivia that I always remember is that Venus is hotter than Mercury, even though Mercury is closer to the sun.
Because Venus has an atmosphere.
See, you know things. I didn't know. I didn't know Mercury didn't have an atmosphere. So
no, it's too close.
Also, so technically,
if it does, it would be like nothing. But I'm pretty sure it's too close to the sun to have one.
Well, in that case, technically, when they say there's no air, they literally mean there's no air of any kind. So I suppose, in a sense, that line was accurate.
Yeah.
Technically, that was accurate.
Yeah.
It came off sounding stupid because I'm like, yeah, because the air on Jupiter is also breathable, but just there's all these other problems.
The opening scene of this movie with the narrator doing this, like, I don't know, this like newsreel is it kind of, I don't know, puts everything in a weird start. It kind of comes off as really hokey, and
it's also very
like, almost like a movie that should be older than it is.
It's very fourth wall breaky because it's like, why did we even know some of this stuff? Like, they looked at these planets and they did this and they did that and they had their eye on Earth. Like, you know.
I was thinking maybe it was because the Orson Welles radio show was so famous at the time that it was kind of like a nod to that, to have a narrator like have this introduction, but I don't know for sure.
So yeah, Meteor 8 lands, and eventually stuff comes out after some. One of the most 50s things about this movie actually is, so we bring in the scientist Dr. Forrester, who, yes, I mean, I'm going to assume that the character in Mystery Science Theater was named after him.
Yeah,
it has to
no
be.
doubt.
Yeah.
I don't actually know, but after watching the movie, I went, oh, that's where that comes from.
Yeah. I mean, because let's face it, the people making Mystery Science Theater 3000 have seen War of the Worlds. It's up their alley.
Yeah, they're all movie fans.
They've watched it. So there's this meteorite. The scientist has been brought in, and he sort of meets this woman who's just kind of out of college and is a fan of scientists and him specifically, and they kind of like they're talking a little bit, and it's like, hey, well, we can't do anything until this meteorite's cooled down. It's far too warm to do anything with it, so it's going to take about 24 hours. There's anything to do in town, and her uncle, who's a pastor, like, invites him to live with them for the night at least, and
the 50s.
And then he says, is there anything to do in this town? And he goes, well, there's a square dance tonight at the whatever place, and it cuts to them all square dancing, and he's dancing with, and I'm like, this is War of the Worlds, why is there a square dancing scene? What's happening?
They have a hoedown.
Oh dear.
I don't hate the scene, and I'll explain why later. But
I mean, I don't hate the scene. It made me laugh because it was just this is such a 50s sci-fi movie thing to do, is to cut to a square dancing scene. Just whatever. Anyway, I'll get to the question. Tara, did you enjoy the War of the Worlds?
Yes, I did. I did like it. I think I don't know if it's not up there with like The Day the Earth Caught Fire for me. Mm-hmm. Or, of course, with The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Of course.
The Day of movies are still better, but I do think it's still pretty good. It especially gets better as it goes on. And, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was good as well. I agree it's not really up to the standard of some of those other classics. I think it's maybe dated a bit more than some of those other ones. There's definitely some hokier elements to it, and not just because you can see the strings on the saucers.
I love it.
You can.
I love that stuff though.
Do you know the weird thing about this is that it's in badly need of a proper restoration, but the detail in the HD is still really good. I
looked it up. There is a 4K version, I think, through iTunes.
But this is the weird thing though. The version I watched was 1080p, and it was good 1080p in the sense that
I bought an HD version. To watch,
because the detail was clearly very good. Like the actual detail in the image in terms of like the grains in the face and all that kind of stuff, it looked really good and detailed. It just also happened to be covered in the specs constantly. Like there was a constant sort of, it was like a really good transfer, but the film they used had a lot of dirt on it and a lot of specs. So I mean,
there's a lot of like double image.
Yeah,
going on to
the 4K could be the same thing, where it looks even better than this does in terms of raw resolution, but the dirt of the image is still there. It's because I've not removed it yet for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's odd. I'll steal a phrase from another podcast that I like. It's this movie's a Criterion cry for help.
Maybe
we need a restoration.
Maybe Paramount will pony up or something. I don't know. But I mean, the movie's pretty solid. It's definitely got its hokier elements, but some of its key scenes really do stand out. I think it falls into a trap that a lot of sci-fi does from this era, where there's like at a certain point there's just like montages of like the army moving around, and like montages of like, you know, things that don't really mean anything or matter to us that much. It's there to make it feel bigger. It's there to make it feel like it's global, when ultimately it's the stuff where it's like just like a couple of characters try to hide from like one like eyeball that's really engaging. That's the stuff that's really cool and really works and still holds up for the most part.
There's some mob scenes that I found truly scary too.
Oh, towards the end, there's some. I mean, again, it's one of those things where I wish I went into it more rather than just have one scene essentially, where it kind of came out. I mean, not nowhere, but like, you know, at 90 minutes, if it's not even 90, it's 85 minutes. Like, there's a reason why a modern version of this runs 2 hours, or at least, because to really like delve into some of the ideas, you want to give them time. You want to really give it the suspense. And movies of this time, almost as an effort of cost and what they could achieve, just have to do it as in the quickest, most succinct way possible, and just sort of, you know, almost too much. Because I feel like modern day movies have went in the opposite way, where everything's too bloated now. Movies from the 50s were sometimes far too lean, right? That's why movies from the 80s are great. Movies that's the middle ground that we all love. Not too bloated, not too lean. Very good.
Yeah, you might be right. But, I think this is the same director as The Time Machine, and there's a lot of parallels with that film as far as production and direction wise, which I think are kind of unfortunate.
You are incorrect.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I don't mean that in a harsh way. I just checked, and he didn't direct Time Machine.
Oh, I don't know why I thought I saw that.
Is it just because it's H.G. Wells?
Same writer?
Let me check. If Barry Lyndon also.
Barry Lyndon?
Did he do the Time Machine? Let me go. Check 1960. No.
Oh. Well, I clicked around and I thought I saw that.
I mean, it's just because it's H.G. Wells' novel.
Maybe. I thought it was the same director, because I thought I read on the trivia that the Wells estate was impressed with the adaptation of the movie, that they gave the rights to the director to do The Time Machine. Maybe he didn't do it, or maybe they just gave the rights to Paramount to do that film as well.
I mean, maybe he produced The Time Machine but didn't direct it. I mean, that's possible. I don't know.
Okay. But, yeah, I was going off of the trivia.
Maybe it was just Paramount. Maybe it was just the company, the studio, rather than the person.
Maybe I should do my research.
You know, there's a sense of discovery early on. There's a sense of horror when things get going. There's one particular scene with the main lady's uncle that I really liked. Which I thought was actually surprisingly dark, probably the darkest scene in the movie in a lot of ways, especially for the time period. That moment for the time period especially felt quite dark.
This movie has a lot of like religious themes in it, and didn't expect that turn so much, or like, I don't know. I guess we can explain more when we get into the breakdown of the scenes, but
yeah, I feel like today you do that scene in a movie for comedy's sake. You do it to sort of show like you've got a bit of an edgy humor to you. I feel like at this time though, this was meant to be like, no, this is how serious this is. yeah. So, you know, that's fine. That works.
God can't help you.
God can't help you until he kind of did in the long run.
Maybe.
I mean, that's open to interpretation. The narration definitely leans towards this was God that helped out by the time we get to the end, but you know,
I mean, maybe, yeah. There is it is described as a miracle, but but I think once you get into like what actually happened, I don't think you can give credit to God.
Oh, I agree. Getting arguments from me.
Everything's very scientific.
The dialogue at the end,
though. With the exception of the one guy who just happens to have a pocket watch. Like, not a pocket watch, but a pocket compass.
Yes.
Everything's very based in science.
Yeah, just the narration. It's not just the narration though. There's like a line at the end as well. There's two. It's not just the word miracle. There's another line as well, like something like I don't know. But the word God was mentioned at the end. Like it wasn't just that the miracle line. But anyway, so you know, it suffers from that thing where the characters are kind of thin, right? There's a lot of these sci-fi movies from this era that feel. And I think that's where actually The Day the Earth Caught Fire really impressed me. Is that I felt the two or three leads of that movie really had proper characters. They properly felt like well developed, and I really cared about them by the time we got to the end. The characters in this kind of just exist to be there. They're almost like characters that you'd put in like a slasher movie, in the sense that they're there to have.
She's a screamer. Man, she can scream. She's got some pipes on her. They utilize those screams a lot.
Yeah, but they're basically just there though for the plot to happen around them, as opposed to like this is kind of what I was saying a lot with the Time Machine actually, in the sense, and I think this is better than the Time Machine overall, but it's kind of that thing where
yeah, me too.
The movie's there to sort of almost prove that they can do it, as opposed to actually make a really good story. Does that make sense? Like we can pull this off. We can have a movie with these alien like ships and
yeah, I mean they try to add more character to it, because I don't think like the original book has a love story in it, and this one has a love story, but it is a bit thin.
Yeah, I mean it's just basic leading man has love interest. They kiss by the end, like maybe.
Do they kiss?
I actually don't think they even kiss now.
They don't. I actually thought it was kind of
they hug.
Nice that the relationship was mostly like, I don't know, kind of professional and like maybe a little flirty, but also it's the end of the world, so like we don't really have time for that.
I mean, I don't know. By the time we get to the end, and I felt like the way they were sort of running after each other through a crowd, I felt like they're in love. We're there.
Well, I mean, she kind of sets up something that pays off at the end that says, okay, yeah, maybe they're in love, but I mean, she clearly has a lot of respect for him, and I don't know, they for most of the movie they seem like colleagues.
I don't know, the square dancing together, like in the second scene, very erotic.
What did you watch?
Very erotic square dancing.
Have you ever seen square dancing?
No, because it's a dumb American thing.
There's nothing erotic. With the exception of Coyote Ugly, there's nothing erotic about square dancing.
That movie came out when I was, like 11, 12. It was the perfect time for that movie to appeal to me.
Yeah, for you to go, who is Tyra Banks?
Dear.
Hello, legs.
Yes. It was a fascinating time. It was at that age where that was really enticing, but also I was young enough to still appreciate the fact that it was just a PG-13 that was teasing me.
Yeah. It's the Maxim magazine of movies.
Yes. Yes.
Not quite porn.
Not quite porn, yes. And that Leanne Rimes song is still just sort of nestled away in my head somewhere, because it played all the goddamn time.
Oh. I'm glad we learned this fact today.
Well, that was that era where I'd have music channels just on the background all the time, and that was something that just played ad nauseum. You had that, you had Blue Abadi Abadai. You had... Abadi Abudai. Yes. YouTube, Beautiful Day played a lot at that time. There was...
Ugh. I don't know if I've told you this, but I hate U2.
Whoa.
They make my ears bleed.
Yeah, I was going to do a joke there, but you said your next sentence too quick.
I know. That's why I always have to. Because everyone thinks they're being so clever. I hate you too. Maybe that's why they named their band that, because no one can say that they hate you too.
No one can say they hate me, I agree. Yes, exactly. Look, I gotta go do the cheap pop, alright?
Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of laughs just now.
We're on a podcast. Well, the laughs aren't for the joke itself. The laughs are for the misery that I'm putting you through by insisting that I do the joke. That's what the joke really is.
Is this a bonus bit yet?
It's been like 30 seconds. Hold your horses, woman.
Let's keep going.
Right. I mean, I'm probably ready to go to spoilers soon. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. Do you want to talk about the designs of the aliens, the ships, the destruction, the effects, all that stuff?
I think the model work is really fun and really, really cool, and definitely looks alien. It looks nothing like the designs. Like, it's not a tripod, which is what we're used to.
Yes.
But it's still kind of cool. I mean, I think they're described as like swans because they have those long bodies or the long necks. But it is sort of like a mixture of like a cobra snake riding a manta ray. And I know it's like a mistake that they have that blue hue from the blue screen that they used to use for models. Mm-hmm. But I like the effect that it gives the ship because it kind of makes it look like it's glowing. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it works here. I mean, like I say, when I don't know if it's the same in the standard definition, but in HD you can see the strings like almost all the time. Yeah, you know, and you can also see the backdrops a lot really easily. You can really tell it's just like a painted backdrop in like a lot of the scenes, and it's whatever. It's fine. It's all the time. It's got a charm. I think that's one of those things. It's
like the old Godzilla films too, are like that. I mean, maybe not so much the first one as the sequels, but I mean, they look kind of cheesy, but there's just a little bit of charm.
I think part of it is because a lot of movies were still in black and white. I feel like because you got away with it a little bit more in black and white because it hid it a little bit better. It was almost like an adjustment period where
we have to figure out how to do this in color now.
Yeah, it was kind of like when we switched to HD from SD, and like a lot of the the daytime soap operas and stuff had to like rebuild all their sets because they intentionally were really cheap. And once they started shooting in HD, it was like, hey, they can
have to have real books now.
Yeah, they can tell how bad this looks now. We have to redo this. We have to repaint everything and put in detail.
Yeah, that's true. I really like the design. I think they look pretty cool. They have the glowing eye, just like Gort did in the Daily Earth Stood Still. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, the RGB eye as well. It's red, blue, and green.
Mm-hmm. I don't really like the alien. I like the arm. The arm is cool.
Yeah, but
the alien with the
sucky fingers, the suction fingers.
Yeah. Like the salt monster in Star Trek. Season 1 episode. I think the second episode.
Yes. It's easy to reference Star Trek when we're talking about 50 sci-fi, yes.
I know. It's I like the look of like the skin and how it's kind of like, I don't know, like breathing or throbbing. But the eye thing that it has with the different colors, I don't know, it looks kind of corny. I don't think it really holds up very well.
Yeah, I like you say, the breathing's good, the fingers are good. I like the eye on the ships rather than on the aliens themselves, because it's the same 3 colors, same RGB kind of design. I like that well enough on the ships, but
it just looks like they're wearing another suit on the alien.
Sure,
it doesn't look. It looks, I don't know. It doesn't look like a living creature.
Yeah, that's fair.
With the exception of the skin. The skin is gross.
And living things are gross, yes. We've established this many a time, yes.
Yes.
So I think we'll go to spoilers then. I will use this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess for being our Patreon producers. That means that they are patrons at the $20 tier or above. But you don't have to support us at that amount, do you, Tara?
Nope. If you want to support just a little, you can do just $1 per month at our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, and that $1 will get you bonus episodes of the Ace. We do the Trancers saga, which I say every week because it's fun to say. And we do other movies that get skipped on here for, I don't know what our cutoff is to what makes a bonus movie or not, but you know when you see it. It's like porn. Yeah. So check it out. Check out our list.
You know when you see it, it's like porn. So there's a back catalogue now you can get for your $1. So yeah, go and have a look. A $5 tier gets you access to voting once per month and early access to episodes every week. So go have a look. But anyway, so yeah, full spoilers for the original War of the Worlds. So there's a couple of key moments and scenes we have to talk about. I think I do love the when it kills people. There's the 3 guys that it kills the first time, where it just beams at them and they all die. But the big one is definitely the priest. It's definitely the pastor, the uncle, who's basically upset that the army's getting ready to fight, and it's like,
why don't we try communicating? Yeah,
we've not even tried.
He makes a good point.
Being peaceful with them yet. We've not tried to talk or come to terms. So he walks out essentially, and it even looks like no man's land. He walks out into no man's land, and he's got his Bible in his hand. He's like, "I am here on behalf of people of Earth," and he's like doing a prayer as he's walking up to the alien tripod, the thingamajig, and it just kills him dead, and everyone freaks out. It's kind of glorious.
God can't save you from this situation. Yeah. Which I thought was kind of cool, and also pretty brave, because like his argument was, if they are more advanced than we are, then they should be closer to the creator. And this movie is pretty heavy on the religion and clearly pro-Christian. But how can you have an alien movie and God, who created man in its image, but have aliens that are more advanced than us? So it can be kind of confusing, and I think I don't know. I thought it was a brave decision to make that scene, but also, what are you trying to say, movie?
I think, as a man with my sense of humor, this scene was hilarious to me.
So when you said in the future this would be played for laughs,
yes,
in a future film, but that already played for laughs for you. It didn't for me. For me, it was just like,
well, no. I mean,
things are getting serious.
I found it funny, but I don't think it's meant to be funny in the movie. I found it funny because I'm me.
I didn't find it funny.
What I meant was, though, is that if someone put this in a movie today, it would be intended for laughs.
Yeah, like your Bible isn't going to protect you. But here it's like, oh no, the Bible's not going to protect you. That always works.
Yeah, because we're much more cynical about, well, of course it's not going to protect you, but maybe in 1953 that worked. Maybe in 1953 that was like, yo, geez, this is scary now. Like, what's this is the 1953 equivalent of The Exorcist, when Reagan just starts I don't know, vomiting and killing priests and whatever else. But that entire
stabbing herself in the crotch with a cross. A dark movie.
It's a very dark movie. I don't think see, when I saw that movie as a relatively young fellow, I don't think I understood that she was masturbating with a crucifix. It wasn't until I was a bit older that I sort of got that. I was like, oh, she's violently masturbating. That's what's happening right now. Okay.
Yep.
And this is the thing, like, if you just show someone the scene on its own, they might say, well, it's not really masturbating, it's just stabbing. But so much of what she says to taunt her mother is sexual that it's definitely meant to be a sexual implication. So do we not recall your mother sucks cocks in hell? I mean, that's one of the most famous lines in the movie.
That poor little girl.
Actually, my favorite movie with Linda Blair in it is a really trashy action revenge movie called what's it called? Street something.
What was the sequel she did for Exorcist though when she got older?
Sequel?
And it was super
You mean Heretic?
Repossessed.
Oh, Repossessed. Oh, that's not a sequel to it. That's like a meta take on it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a sequel, I think.
Savage Streets, that's what it is. Because she's like the badass teenager who gets a machine gun and takes on the gangs. if we ever do that action movie spin-off we joked about, that can go on the list. So Savage Streets with Linda Blair with the big 80s hair.
I'm ready.
It's so funny because it's like I think of her as a little girl, and she's got a cameo in Scream, but that's like 20 years later. But yeah, oh yeah, of course, by the 80s she'd have been like a old enough to be like the 18-year-old badass. Of course she would have been. It's weird how time moves like that. So yeah, priest death, good scene. The other big scene I think is after the first attack happens really, and the scientist Forrester and the love interest get separated. Well, not from each other, but they get separated from everyone else, and they end up hiding in a barn or like a little farmhouse, and they try to have some eggs, but they're interrupted by one of the alien ships who basically just decimate the house, and they're rolling all over the place. And when they wake up, this is when we get the scene where they're actually dodging the eyeball, which it's just fairly effective. And then they actually see the alien, and it kind of scutters back. I thought it was kind of funny how it almost dances back out of the scene. It almost does a little dance. But it was a fun scene. It was a fun scene that I really get into. I think for me,
that had a lot of tension in it.
Yeah, for me, it's after this the movie kind of falls down a little bit for me, because a lot of it's just the army generals talking about their plans. It doesn't really mean much. There's lots of shots.
I don't know. I like the movie more as it goes on.
I kind of bounce back and forth with it, because I think a lot of these movies from this era kind of end up feeling the same when it cuts to the army generals talking about, so this is moving here, we're going to do this and whatever, and like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but it's bound to happen because we have atomic bombs at this time. So if you have to fight something that is defeating you, that's our last hope. And of course the army's the one.
Yeah, but it's never a character we get to know in these movies. It's always just the army show up and we have to listen to them talk. Like well,
we meet the general guy pretty quickly, the guy with the mustache.
Yeah, like once, but I mean, you don't know his name. He's not got a character. He's not got an arc.
His name is General Les. Maybe that's the actor's name.
Nah, his name is...
He's a 2-star.
He's Major General Mann. His name is Mann. That's how generic he is.
What's my last name? You don't know. That's Guy from Galaxy Quest, for anyone who didn't know.
Yes. The quote-unquote... red shirt. You can't say red shirt, of course, because they can't officially use Star Trek terms, but although, do you think red shirt is something they could actually like claim as theirs, like Paramount, if they want to sue? Like, because technically it's not a thing they use in the show. That's something that the fans have used.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so I mean the army stuff just kind of like, it's whatever. It's the same in all these movies, which is why. But you can tell the movie loved their shots of the aliens going down the street blasting buildings, because there's a lot of it. Like once it gets to this part of the movie, there's tons of it. And I'm okay with that. This is
where we get the best model work.
Oh sure, yeah, the model works great. Because this is where the movie gets to its darkest point, because it gets to a scene where they're still trying to figure things out, and Forrester's trying to figure things out, and there's actually everyone gets separated in the city, because at this point there's riots because certain cities are already falling victim to the aliens, and it's all over the planet. And basically
they just sound like the siren, and I think it was right after they tried doing the atomic bomb on the alien, and it had no effect.
Yeah, well, because that's the other thing. When they try and shoot it even before the atomic bomb, you see like a force field around it. Now, admittedly, it looks
like a glass thing. Like,
it looks like a jar.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's adorable.
It looks like Mr. Freeze's helmet. That's what it looks like. Yeah. It looks like that's on top of him.
I was thinking the rose for Beauty and the Beast, but we have very different childhoods.
No, I can picture it. I know what you're talking about. But he gets, basically looters just steal the truck and steal all the equipment that's on it, and it leaves him lying there kind of bloody, and he's like, damn you people, you're ruining the only chance we've got.
They pulled him out of the car while he's driving.
Yeah, and
like punch him.
It's pretty vicious.
And then he gets like trampled. He gets stepped on a bunch of times.
It's such a weird thing.
Bloody.
The movie's willing to like pose all these interesting things, but it only ever does each one for one scene. Like, it'll do the angry mob for one scene. It'll do, how bad humanity is for that one scene. It'll do putting their faith in religion for one scene. It'll do all these things for one scene. but it won't necessarily this movie to me, like a lot of these movies from this era, feels like a collection of ideas they had, as opposed to like a coherent full movie that goes from start, beginning, middle, end.
No, I sort of watched it like, okay, let's try this method, and that doesn't work. This method, and that doesn't work. So now we're going to try this. Like, they're going through the steps of everything they're going to try, and the aliens are just bigger and more powerful than all of them, which, you know, culminates to the big ending.
Yeah, but it feels very basic. Like one again, going back to Day That the Earth Caught Fire, or even Day the Earth Stood Still, is that those main characters become real characters with arcs and like have stories throughout that give it a through line that make everything feel like it has more weight. Because there's no characters I really get to know in this, they're all just kind of like there, like. It's a very kind of cold movie where I feel like I'm at a distance from everything, and it's a fine watch, it is, but it has that disconnect for me. It can never be that good compared to some of those other ones, because it's just a collection of the ideas of what would happen in this situation, as opposed to actually giving me a storyline with a character who's going through the whole thing. So it's lacking that for me. It's lacking that personality, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I disagree, but I don't mind the formula of this for this type of film. Like, we are trying everything that we can as we think of it, and it's getting progressively more and more like desperate, because everything they've tried previously doesn't work. And the payoff in the end is that, you know, none of that stuff was ever going to work, because we just had to put faith in nature. And it's, or I guess in this movie's argument, God. But I don't, you know, not care about our two leads.
I mean,
we see them enough, and you know,
we see them enough. Listen to your argument there. We see them enough.
I mean, okay, I guess they're kind of the equivalent to the Godzilla human characters in the 2014 movie,
yeah,
2014 Godzilla. We're just like, okay, they're here so that we can, you know, see where Godzilla is. we're not watching the movie for them.
That's true. But
we're watching it for the disaster.
Yeah, I would argue though that the humans in Godzilla 2014 have more though than these characters do.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to watch it again.
How successful it is another debate, but like I think it still feels like you're following Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. I think this movie has
big ideas that it doesn't quite get across, as well as like the Day of the blank movies do, but it's still like they're still there. They're just not as in your face. Like, you know, after the atomic bomb doesn't work, and then people look at the scientist guy and they're like, it's on you. Like, only great scientific minds can save us now because our weapons won't work. And, you know, the pressure's on him to do it. And as he gets the stuff he needs that he thinks will take down, you know, we have to go after the actual aliens, not the armor. So let's go biological. And all the things that he needs, he can't get to because there's a mob. And even when he has the stuff he needs, the mob punches him in the face when he tries to get it back. Like, it's because the world is ending. So like there are themes there. Like, once
but they're very
get to a place we can't go back from.
They're very they're very isolated though, right? Like, they're not like the movie's a collection of ideas that are sort of stitched together. It doesn't really feel like a coherent whole to me in the same way that like a movie that has a through line does. It feels very like, okay, we had this idea for this thing, or H.G. Wells wrote the book, I should say, but like it feels more like, let's prove that we can actually pull these things off, and they do it to the best of their ability, but they do it without actually building a core story of a character that actually carries us through it and makes us care about what's going on. It's all very just, we're supposed to care because the world's in jeopardy, but that doesn't work. It never works. I don't care about the world. You can tell me the world's in danger, but it's meaningless if there's no one in it I care about. Writing 101.
I did care about them though.
Why?
Like, not as much as like the other films, but I don't think that they're bad characters or
no, I mean, they're not
poorly written characters.
They're likable enough, but they're not like like, and I'm sounding like really negative on this now, and I don't mean to be. Like, I think it's a fine movie, but I think there's a ceiling here. There's a ceiling to how good it can be because it's got all these limitations. And I'm not talking about limitations of technology or special effects. I'm talking about limitations in the script and what it chooses to focus on. Like, you could do this movie like 12 Angry Men. Never show me anything. Just have the characters debate the rights and wrongs of what to do. But it's never really becomes that interesting. You know, it's more just, we'll try each thing once and it'll fail, so we'll go to the next thing.
I guess, but I think because of the way it ends in the book and how they choose to use that ending in the film, I think that escalation of events is a good way to tell the story.
It can be, but like, each part needs more time spent on it. I need to go through this with the character getting more and more frustrated because nothing's working. It doesn't really feel that when I'm watching it. It just kind of feels like our main character, Forrester, essentially just kind of is there while the army's doing stuff and doesn't really have much of a say or anything to do with anything. And it's not until later on he's kind of directly involved. Like, the frustration of him when he can't get to the equipment because people are awful, like, that would play even better if he's been trying things all movie and he thinks he may have a chance finally and then he can't do it because people are awful. Like, that could really hit home. That could really feel devastating at that point in the movie. As it is, it feels like a cool little point. It feels like a cool little idea, but it doesn't really feel like it actually has a big dramatic impact in the context of a movie as a whole. I feel very disconnected watching movies like this from this era because they just kind of, it's the same thing with the Time Machine, really, which it's not just because of H.G. Wells thing, but it's the exact same thing where it feels like, let's just prove we can pull this off, so we'll do all the core beats without any of the actual
but they really couldn't in the Time Machine. Like, it's a fun movie, but that one was super hokey.
And this is going to sound like a big insult. It kind of reminds me in a weird way of like something like Zack Snyder's Watchmen, where he just wants to prove that he can do everything in the book beat for beat, but without actually putting in the core heart of it that actually makes you care about it. These are kind of like a more old school version of that, where we'll prove we can do the story, but there's not actually that core real thing we should care about in the center of it.
Do you think you would like this movie more if it was black and white? Because I think a lot of it comes from just the fact that the model work, it really takes you out of the movie. Like, it's fun to watch, but it's also like, oh, this is dated.
Not really. Well, everything I've been saying for the last 10 minutes has nothing to do with that. Like,
I don't know. I think maybe it can affect the way you watch a film.
Oh no, it can do, but
consciously.
But that's not my complaint. No, my complaint is purely a writing thing. My complaint is purely the focus of what it's doing in the script. I mean, this is the equivalent of a modern blockbuster which doesn't give enough time to the characters, right? Like, modern blockbusters that are bad will still give characters time per se, but they won't actually write compelling characters. Whereas back in the 50s when they do sci-fi movies like this, their mistake isn't so much that they don't write the characters properly, they just don't write them at all. They just don't give them much to do. They're just kind of there.
I like the side characters that we got too, though. Like, even they all had some personality at least. Like, especially the three guys that we meet at the beginning who get torched. Oh, sure,
yeah. I mean, like, I don't want to sound too harsh. Like, there's little things to them, but I don't think that there's that core dramatic through line to make me care about everything that's going on. It's a very just kind of series of events of a movie. And a lot of those events are really entertaining, and a lot of it has charm, and a lot of it has all these things. But as a fully functional movie, I don't think it's great. It's good. It's not great because it doesn't have those things.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't put it up there with the greats either. But I don't think it's bad at all. Like, and I know you don't either. But like, it's I still think it's really, really watchable and worth watching.
Do you know, I've noticed something. See, because I've got a funny feeling we're both going to end up rating this really close together. But for some reason, probably. You have this knack for making me sound like I'm being really negative because you don't want to sound too harsh. So you always have to try and defend against anything I say that's negative.
I didn't think you would pick up my strategy, but clearly I was wrong.
I don't understand why. Why do I have to look at the villain? I don't need to look at the villain. You could. Oh. All right. Yeah. So obviously,
trying to good cop, bad cop out of this. Also, when I don't like a film, I think it'll be more impactful.
True. Well, see, I'm the opposite. I want it to be impactful when I do like a movie. I want that to mean something. When I hand out a 9 or a 10, it should feel like, oh shit, like Peter really recommends this, because he doesn't go up that high that often. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the end of the War of the Worlds, basically the aliens just suddenly start dying. All of a sudden, even because it's like right before the main characters are probably going to die. They've just been reunited in a church, and the aliens just start killing over and dying. And I do like the shot of the alien hand kind of stop moving, because the hand looks cool. But basically, the bacteria and the germs and everything else on Earth
is kind of an airborne virus that we're already immune to.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even take it as just one. I kind of took it as like everything. Like we're just, we're all immune to all these things on Earth because we live here, and evolution has just made us immune. But these aliens, not so much. So they all start killing over. And I do think it's funny, because I remember seeing the remake and thinking how much that ending feels really abrupt in that movie. It's even more abrupt here. The movie, like, from the second this starts happening, the movie's over within like 2 minutes. Like it's like you can time it. It's like 120 seconds from the second they start dying to the end. Like the entire explanation happens in those 2 minutes. It's a sign of the times.
We get credits like we do now, so it's just end.
Yeah. So, and I believe we are going to do the Steven Spielberg version of the film next week.
I think that would be fun. I think it would be fun to do the classic and then the remake, especially since you sound like you really want a remake. Because clearly you hate this film.
Oh, shut up. Don't. Every time I have like a reasonable criticism, like you make me sound like such a bad guy. I don't.
Because I'm the good cop.
Oh, I don't like it. So no, it's fine. Like, and again, like my complaints about this are not about effects or anything like that. Like, I'm comparing to other movies of a similar era. Obviously, Day the Earth Stood Still is actually older than this. Is
that 51?
Yeah, 51. And then obviously
only a couple of years.
Yeah, Day the Earth caught fires about 10 years later, so maybe you could argue that's a bit newer, but I'm comparing it to the scripting of these other movies of the era, not like other things. And I'm saying that no, movies of that era could be as good as I'm saying they can be. There's my examples. So if you think I'm being too harsh because it's old, like, no. I'm holding it to a standard that I have seen achieved in that era.
Some of my favorite films from all time are from the 50s.
I know, 50s is great. Like, Hitchcock was in his like absolute like knockout era in the 50s. And Godzilla was the 50s, and Ingmar Bergman was like doing Swedish Gold in the 50s, like,
I love the Cecil B. DeMille films. I know they're maybe problematic, but they're of their time and a spectacle.
Sure. So David Lean was knocking out movies. The 50s is great. 50s is great. I think War of the Worlds for me kind of falls into similar thoughts to the Time Machine. It's better than the Time Machine. It has more. The visual spectacle is definitely better for sure. But the sound design is really, really good. Not just because it's used in Star Trek, but like I really do like the sound design of the film a lot. Oh sure, no, I agree. The technical qualities are really good for the time, but ultimately I think it's kind of light on actual story content, which some of these sci-fi movies from this era fall into. Not all of them, but some of them do. So
is she one of the earliest Scream Queens then, and something?
Anne Robinson, not to be confused with the Weakest Link host.
I've never watched that.
Yeah, well, I
don't watch trash.
She did do it in the US as well, so it's not even just a British reference like that. Like, although that would be funny if she was just that old. Like, the host of the Weakest Link was also starring in War of the Worlds in 1953. But yes. I love how you say that, you assume I've been watching like hundreds of episodes of The Weakest Link. I'm just familiar with it from pop culture.
I don't know. I've never seen an episode.
Yes.
I don't watch trash.
What do you watch that I can make
sci-fi trash?
Yeah, what do you watch that I can make fun of that I can call trash? Game of Thrones, that's trash. So we're at that point now of the show where you're going to rate the movie out of 10.
Okay. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's great. So it's not going to get my top ratings, but I do think it's worth watching. And I think it's, I think the design alone should, like, people who are fans of science fiction should check this one out. I think it has a lot of legacy too. War of the Worlds. I believe, although I've had my trivia wrong so far, but I believe this one was entered into like the like National Library of Congress for film preservation or something like that. So it's a film very much of its time, and I'm going to give it a 7.5. 7.5. I think it's good, not great. Definitely worth watching.
Not great, not terrible. 3.6.
No, it's much higher.
That was a Chernobyl joke. I wasn't actually saying 3.6.
I know.
I almost,
not great, not terrible.
I almost wish we rated it a 5, because then 3.6 would be the right number for not great, not terrible.
We could start for the new year.
Nah, I prefer 10. But just for that joke, it'd be convenient. So I'm going to go with straight 7. I think, like you say, it has some...
You hate this movie.
Oh my god. It has some heritage value. It has some, legacy to it. It is worth watching for the cinema history aspect of it. I don't think it's like a super engaging story per se. It's more a series of moments, but it's an easy enough watch, and bit of sci-fi history. So yeah, there you go. I'll argue with the title though. I think it's more of an invasion of worlds, because a war to me would suggest that it's sort of fought on equal footing, which would like be in space.
There's atomic bombs used. The military is in half the film.
As a last ditch effort. A last ditch effort. They're playing defense. That's not a war. That's a invasion defense.
I think that America definitely declared war on the aliens.
Oh dear. All right.
We are quick to declare war, so.
There you go. That is War of the Worlds. We do actually have a bonus section this week. We have a Mystery Science Theater 3000 to talk about. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm just going to do some of the outro plugging before we get there. So you can, of course, let us know what you think of War of the Worlds in the comments below. You can like and subscribe. You can ding the bell on YouTube for the notifications, and you can support the show by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. More people will find us that way. You can share us out on the social medias, and as we mentioned earlier, you can go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us financially. So you can do all those things, and that's great. And check out other stuff that we do. Tara, recommend another MailFuzz TV piece of content.
If you're really into trash TV, you can check out the Netflix Almost Canceled that you guys do, you and Connor do. See if there's any gold in that trash. So yeah, it's good. It's a good show. Did I do it?
Yeah, I mean, you technically did it. There was maybe a little bit of your anti-Netflix agenda mixed in there that you couldn't hold back. But other than that, yeah, you did a decent job. All right, so we did watch a Mystery Science Theater 3000, and because we have finished reviewing the TV shows we were doing for the time being, it does mean that these might be a bit more consistent. Now, there probably won't be one next week because we have a little end of year special thing to do instead. But these Mystery Science Theater 3000 sections should be a little bit more consistently done for the next little while. So if you enjoy them, you should be happy. You should be happy indeed.
Good news.
Good news. So
it's a Christmas miracle.
We watched Revenge of the Creature, And we watched this
which is season 8, episode 1.
Also, I love how you say Christmas Miracle. This will be like another 2 weeks before they see this episode. It'll be mid-January, and they'll be like, "What?" But we did watch the episode before Christmas. We watched this on like the 22nd of December, I think. That sounds right.
I don't know, it was a week ago.
Yeah, but it's been a full week, and I have to admit, waiting a full week to talk about an episode of Creature from the Black Lagoon, or episode of The Mystery Science Theater, which is Revenge of the Creature, is the movie, which is why I said that.
It's probably a mistake.
Yeah, it was probably a mistake because I actually took notes, realizing that it would be difficult to remember after a week, and I'm looking at some of my notes, and I have no idea what some of these mean. Like they're clearly joke lines that the guy said, and I hoped that it would trigger my memory, and some of them I kind of can figure out, but some of them I cannot. But the gist of the movie is that basically people in a boat go to capture the creature, and they do so, and most of the movie is spent with the creature in a tank at like a deep sea world. Like that's the movie, and there's like a really bad romance playing out over the course of this.
Yeah. Of course, he's a universal monster, so his one weakness is big boobied women.
I mean, what you meant to say there is he's male, so his one weakness is big boobied women. Who doesn't have that weakness?
Isn't that like across the board of the universal monsters? Is that they all have one weakness?
I mean, they're fans of big boobied women, but that's relatable.
I don't know.
I can get behind.
Me, but...
I can get behind big boobied women. Okay.
Yeah, it makes you sympathetic towards the creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's why the end of Frankenstein is so sympathetic.
Yes. Yes.
He only wanted one thing: his bride, big boobied bride. This one is, I guess. I suggested we watch this one next because the last one we watched was Laser Blast, which was the end of the Comedy Central run. And this is the beginning of the Sci-Fi Channel. And they have new voices for some of the characters, like Crow has a new voice. We get introduced to one of the new bads that we get for the rest of the series, Bobo. Because they come out of their little space-time warp thing where they turn into balls of energy, and they come back onto the side of love, and when they call to Earth, it's Planet of the Apes Earth.
Yes, and
so that's kind of fun.
There's like 50 references to Planet of the Apes in the first like 5 minutes of the episode.
Oh, I love it. I think that's the best part of the episode. It's not a bad episode. It's just not one that I watch a lot, so I don't even really remember a lot of the jokes.
There's some good ones. The first time you see the creature, it looks like he's waving because of the way the suit looks and because of the way the swimming hat is. So they're like,
I think they used that clip in future intros for the show.
Yeah, because they just say, "Here I am, I'm the creature. Hi." There's a moment there. There's a running joke with one of the good-looking guys where they keep saying, "Oh, look at me, I'm handsome. Yes, I'm so handsome. Yes, I'm handsome." Like, that's kind of there for a long time. Yeah. Yeah. Man, yeah, we can't wait a week again. This is like I remember laughing at this. Like I remember laughing at going to write down that blonde joke that was good, but I don't remember what it was in response to, so I can't explain why that's funny. But I remember laughing at it.
Yeah, I think this is a medium funny episode. Yes. Still highly recommend.
I do.
To be honest, I think this is on the movie itself, though, because this is like a big film. It's a sequel to The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think it's the second one.
It is, yeah. I checked when we were watching it. It was the second one. I did like how they kept referring to the sailors as the milkmen. They kept saying, "Oh, the milkmen have shown up because of the white uniforms they've got." So yeah, that's all right. I deduction that. I remember laughing at that.
I deduction that. Yeah, was that funny.
Yeah, was that a blonde joke? Was that the lady character who they were putting that in?
It might be.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, honestly, a lot of these jokes. There's a lot of good lines I've written down. I just can't explain the
context.
Yeah. Although this one's funny on its own. Honey, I did a scientific breakthrough thingy. That was funny, this one.
Yeah.
I know. But honestly, the movie, like they have it trapped in a tank. Eventually, it gets out and it starts stalking the lady, the love interest lady, and eventually they have a bit of a fight with it. It's pulling things down because eventually it gets out of its chains and it's pulling people out of the water. Which, by the way, why does everyone in this movie, when they get pulled out of the water, do a flip? They all flip. They don't just fall in. They have to do like a front flip.
Yeah. I don't know why. If you're asking me why, I don't know.
Old-timey stuntman bollocks is what I call it.
I think this movie was going for like an early Blackfish storyline of why you can't keep nature in captivity. So, you know, pro-animal rights film from the 50s. Not bad.
I've got a feeling that the writer of this didn't even understand the concept of animal rights and just locked into that by complete accident. That's my guess.
That's why the scientists are really the villains.
Yeah, at no point does anyone say, hey, maybe we should just leave him out there in his own natural habitat, like where he belongs.
Yeah,
and just
it's a King Kong story, right?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. But it's there's so many scenes in the movie of like them getting out of the tank where he is, trying to like prod him or feed him or something, and coming back up. Like that happens like so many times.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Like they rented or they bought an underwater camera and they were so proud of the underwater camera that they used it so much, like all the time, even though there was nothing to do.
There's one thing I kind of liked in the movie where it's sort of it gets the creepiness right, where he's like coming out of the water on that like restaurant that's on a dock, and like coming towards the people there. That was a good scene. That was kind of like, oh, there's the Universal monster. Anyway, I think it was a good movie to open up the new Mystery Science Theater. Like, we have a big name. Now that we have the Sci-Fi Channel, we have limitations on what types of movies we can do. But we're going to give you names like Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, did they have more limitations on sci-fi compared to Comedy Central?
Yeah, so the Sci-Fi Channel said, we'll give you guys, money to make a show for us, but you can only do science fiction and horror films, and that's it.
Okay, that's not so bad. No
Mitchells in the sci-fi era.
Mitchell was a bit of a gem, so it's a shame we can't do more of that, but I mean, most of the best episodes are horror sci-fi movies. Let's be honest.
Those are pretty easy to make fun of, as we both know, watching a lot of science fiction and you watching a lot of horror.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of their gold comes from those genres, so that's not the worst thing ever.
No.
But yeah, that is what it is. I mean, the movie's dull, but I get it because it's a big name, but it's also not so offensively bad that it's hard to sit through like some of the other ones. So when they hit them,
some of them can be pretty rough.
And that's the other thing. Actually, that makes sense why they were able to do this movie, because Universal owns Sci-Fi, and Universal monster movies are obviously owned by Universal. So I feel like they got this one.
Which is why this one is not available on YouTube.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But that'll probably be why, because it's a Universal movie.
Yeah. I think it's... I mean, I've never had any problem trying to find a copy of it on YouTube because, I mean, the show creators and runners have always been saying, like, always said we share our episodes. We want them out there for everyone to see. Like, they've never been stingent on that. It's always been a show that's like, tell your friends and, record this and give them a copy of the tape.
Yeah.
That's always been a big part of the culture. So the fact that one's not on there, it has to be because of that. There's just that one, and there's a Godzilla one that you can't get.
And again, that's a Toho movie. So
yeah. Which they did release on DVD, and then they had to pull them off the shelves. So it is available out there. Some people have them, but they're extremely rare and hard to get.
And expensive, I assume, because of that.
Yeah. It was like volume 10, and then they came out with volume 10.2, which is the one that I have. I missed it.
Oh, that's a shame. I actually have that Godzilla movie on Blu-ray on its own, like vanilla.
It should be a bonus feature on the Blu-ray.
It should be, yeah. Honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. Most of the movies that they do, you would never buy on their own anyway. But it is kind of a neat thing to do where you can, like, oh, you bought the movie, here's the Mystery Science Theater commentary track to go along with it.
And it's like a trophy, you know, to have your film be riffed by the Mystery Science Theater crew. They didn't do a lot of films.
I mean, hell, maybe I would buy Twilight if it came with the riff tracks audio commentary. Like,
that should just be all movies. Yeah. They should have the director's commentary, the riff tracks commentary.
It's a genius idea. Do you know, I don't know if you ever knew about this, but see the Ghostbusters DVD that came out, like, you know, when DVDs like became big in like 2000-ish, 1999 maybe, the commentary track had like a Mystery Science Theater silhouette of like the three commentators in the bottom.
No.
But it only worked if you put it into 4:3 mode, so you couldn't watch it like in proper widescreen. And it was there was a lot of like
it's just a little Easter egg.
There was a lot of hoops you had to jump through to get it to work, because it was like a subtitle track, but it had to like be in a certain format to work properly. But hey, it was this weird thing that I was like, that's weird. And I think when that came out and I had it, I never had heard of Mystery Science Theater yet, so I didn't understand why this was a thing. Like, why are you doing this? Why every other DVD commentary doesn't have this?
Yeah. Yeah, clearly an homage, huh? The there's every now and then it pops up. There's a Futurama episode where they go to the movies, and then the people who are telling them to stop talking during the movie are like Crow and Tom Servo. There's Arrested Development has a little commentary track for the 4th season when they're doing the Fantastic Four footage, and then the only footage they can find are the Mystery Science Theater version, even though they never did it. But like Joel Hodgson came back to like, and I think Trace Beaulieu, I never learned how to say his name, Clayton Forrester. They both came back to do the voice for the Arrested Development. And I heard Community had an episode, but I've never watched it, so I don't know.
I love Community. I don't remember a Mystery Science Theater thing, but I'd probably notice it this time if I watched it again, though.
Yeah.
I do love Community. No, that's pretty neat. No, it's nice that it's kind of infected pop culture to an extent. It's kind of a niche pop culture thing. It's not something the mainstream people know about, but us nerds know about Mystery Science Theater.
I'm a Mystery Science Theater super fan. That's true. And when I first moved to the States and I was so excited to get the Sci-Fi Channel, I thought that like people my age would just know, because clearly it's the greatest thing on television. And no one knew what I was talking about. So it was still just a niche thing.
Yep. That sounds right.
I still have a t-shirt from when right before we moved to the States. I asked my dad if he would buy me a shirt online, which was like a super sketchy thing to do at the time. But the Sci-Fi Channel had like a store, and I wanted it before we moved to the States, so I would have something from Mystery Science Theater, and I still have it, and I'll go get it. Show and tell.
Whoa, okay. Well, everyone, hold out your butts. Tara's venturing off. You can see Tara's cat on the cushion. He's kind of blending in with it. He's kind of a similar color.
I know, isn't he cute though?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's break out this 30-year-old t-shirt.
Look at it. You can still see the silhouettes. I mean, it's really faded, but... So yeah. OG fan. This shirt is... How old is it? 22 years old.
Whoa.
22 and a half.
Hey, it still fits. That's good. That's a good sign.
It's a large. I got a large because I wanted it to be something I could sleep into when I was a kid.
That makes sense. They did that little joke thing actually when they were coming to Netflix. They did like a scene from Stranger Things, and it made me want like all the Stranger Things and I love that show. It's not that obviously not like this is the thing. They always focus on bad movies, but they could easily just do it for good movies too, and it would work. Like there's no reason why.
Definitely.
The movies don't have to be bad for the jokes to work. They
did the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, Riff Tracks did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made them watchable.
Well, you buy the commentary track, and then there's an app you use, so it'll sync up with wherever you are in the film, and it'll just play over your phone. or you can buy like actual movies that they've riffed, and then you see the silhouettes and stuff. Or not silhouettes, they just do like a commentary track over it. You can buy Birdemic, and you can buy
Look,
what's that Miami movie? Miami Connection.
Miami Connection. Yes.
I saw that one in theaters. That was really good.
Yeah, I need to see that. I've heard good things about Miami Connection. I have seen Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Just watch the riff tracks. It's so good.
Hard Ticket to Hawaii was a trip.
Is that the one with the frisbee?
Yes.
Yes.
The frisbee, and also the blow up doll with the rocket launcher.
Yes. Okay.
And the skateboard.
Familiar.
Yes. To be honest, it's just those two scenes that you really need to see it for. But but yes, that one.
Yeah, I mean, Birdemic's tough to watch, but the scene with the digital birds.
Oh yeah. My favorite part about Birdemic, apart from the awful sound mixing that doesn't exist because you can hear the audio cut with every shot, but is at the start of the movie when he meets the love interest. When he goes outside, he runs after her and says, "Hey." He uses her name, and he shouldn't know her name yet. Like, they've not shared each other's names yet, and I was like, "How do you make that mistake? How do you do that in the script?" What? Upsets me. That would be so dumb. All right, I think that wraps up our discussion. I think that wraps up our bonus section on Revenge of the Creature.
The most important thing about it is that it's the start of the science fiction or Sci-Fi Channel, and you get to meet Bobo and Pearl.
Yes. So. Well, no, Pearl was already there because she traveled through time.
Yeah, she was the lawgiver. That was like the big twist.
Right. But she was there before this episode, though, right? She did appear at least once.
She was in the laser blast. She was there as Clayton's mom, and she was helping him pack up the big rig. Good. She was a very different type of character.
Kind of like how when Daphne showed up in Cheers before Frasier, and she didn't play Daphne, she was playing a different character.
Oh, I didn't know that.
His dad showed up in Cheers as well, actually, played a different character. Also, on Cheers, Frasier said his dad was dead, and never once mentioned having a brother. A lot of things didn't line up perfectly, but it's okay, because Frasier's such a good show, you don't care.
Yeah. The important thing is Frasier and Lilith.
Yes.
And that lines up.
That lines up, yes. And Nails is a phenomenal character, so I don't care. Cheat as much as you want. Oh, dear. Alright, we're not here to talk about Frasier, though. Oh, it'd be easy to do.
We'll see you next week with the remake, the Steven Spielberg remake of this film. So.
Yes, which I suspect will have a lot more juicy things to talk about than this version.
Yeah, maybe I'll make this version look better. Who knows?
Oh, maybe. Have you seen the remake?
I haven't seen it since the theater.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me as well. I have seen it, but it's been a long time. All right, well, yep, that'll wrap up the show. So we'll be back next week with War of the Worlds 2005. We'll not have Mr. Science Theater next week, but probably the week after. So look forward to that. And I could promote stuff that we're about to do, but there's no point because it'll already be up by the time this episode goes out, so it doesn't really matter. But just go look for all the top of the decade lists that have been going up over Christmas and New Year's.
We all worked really hard on them soon.
Yes. In theory, you're going to work hard on them. Yes. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction movies, guys. And computer, that's salsa.
Yum, yum.